Seneca, and welcome to this episode looking at what you need to know for your 11 plus comprehension exam. Now, we've got other videos looking at your maths, your non-verbal reasoning and your verbal reasoning, so check those out once you're done with this video. And what you need to know about your 11 plus exam is it's basically an exam to see if grammar school is right for you, but also to see if you are right for the grammar school. So we will cover some content that you need to know. But if you want to know more or see more, sign up for our free courses on Seneca Learning, and by going to senecalearning.com, and you will get those completely for free, and they'll help you with your preparation. So let's get going and look at some comprehension questions and some examples. I'm going to look mostly at bones and great expectations in this episode. So if you want to see other stuff, come and see it, find us on the platform. So, bones to start with. If we're looking at vocabulary questions, so vocabulary questions are usually worth a mix of 2 marks, if they're depending on how a maximum of 2 marks, depending on how difficult the vocabulary is on the comprehension paper. So, if a word has more than one meaning, you'll be expected to write down the meaning of the word that has been used in the text. So, for example, we've got an extract below, and some ideas of how to answer the vocabulary questions that follow that. So I'll read this to you. Bones. So Thomas is unnerved by the strange noises disturbing the forest. He had prided himself on knowing the sounds of every leaf and paw print, but these frightening new noises have left him worried about the future of his beloved valley. A shriek pierced the air with all the force of an arrow, and Thomas swallowed the fear that had risen in his chest, as that distant distress call echoed around the valley. The ancient forest had never been silent, but neither was it usually so very loud. Thomas had grown up in the shadows of the gnarled oaks, with their precious autumn acorns, and the horse chestnut trees with their prickly treasure. He knew by heart the sounds of their leaves, the calls of the birds that they sheltered, and the vibrations that sang of the lives of thousands of animals, furry, winged, and feathered alike. He knew them all. He first knew that something had changed, that something malign and malevolent had disturbed the balance of this sacred place. When the birds did not return, 1 week late from the migration, and 2, and then 3. And then the bees had disappeared, not 1 or 2, but entire hives were gone. Without the birds and ever diligent bees to pollinate the plants and his crops, both the forest and the farmland would slowly die. And then the shrieks started. 1 full week after Thomas had first heard those heart-stopping and excruciating calls, and under the lights of the brightest full moon he could remember seeing, Thomas stepped into the shadows of those towering oaks, shadows that had never seemed hostile before. So that is the passage that the sort of passage you might be given in your exam. And what you'll then need to do is you'll be asked about different vocabulary from that exam. So, from that text, So what does sheltered mean? From line 8, so we find line 8. The vibrations that sang of the lives of thousands of animals. Sorry, I've read line 9. Of their leaves, the calls of the birds that they sheltered. So in this case, sheltered means sort of protected from bad weather or harm. Because it's sheltering the birds. So malign means evil in nature. But let's have a look at line 12. So that something malign and malevolent had disturbed the balance of this sacred place. So there's the passage again. So what does malevolent mean? So in this situation, it is desiring to do evil. And sacred means connected to God. So you'll have these questions and you'll know different words. The best way to prepare for this is to look up do some practice like you would do on Seneca, but also look up some more obscure words so you can get to know the meaning of them. So let's have a look at a retrieval question. So retrieval questions are the simplest comprehension questions, and they require you to find a single fact or a piece of information from the text. Now these ideas can't come from your head or anything like that, they have to come directly from the text. So if we have the same passage that I read a minute ago, what is the name of the main character? So you go back and look back through the text, and you can see that Thomas is the name of the main character. Which two trees grow in the forest? So again, we go back at the text and we look for what trees grow in the forest. So here, acorns, horse chestnut trees. So I'm just trying to see if you can get this. So there were horse chestnuts and there were oak trees. We know that because that's where acorns come from. So again, which animals are mentioned in the extract? Well, I can remember that there are bees mentioned in the extract. And there are also birds, aren't there? Okay, but if you're not sure, you could have looked back at the passage to help you with that. So that sort of thing is what you can expect from retrieval questions. Then we've got feelings questions. Again, it will be from the same passage. I won't read it out again, but feelings questions are in comprehension paper, ask you to identify how a character is feeling and to support your answer with evidence. So for example, we've got this question here, and we need to pick out some bits that tell us how Thomas is feeling. So how does Thomas feel in paragraph 1? So to read paragraph 1 again. A shriek pierced the air with all the force of an arrow, and Thomas swallowed with fear that had risen in his chest, as that distant distress call echoed around the valley. Well, it sounds to me like he's pretty afraid because they use words like shriek, which is sort of a shriek pierced the air. It sounds very sort of scary. And that's implied through the writing. There's a little cat looking scared. Look at that, so sweet. So which phrase tells you how Thomas feels? So we've already just mentioned that. The shriek pierced the air, the shriek, but also there's the swallowed, the fear that had risen in his chest. Tells you that he's feeling afraid. Next question. So what language device is used in the phrase, swallowed the fear that had risen in his chest? Well, that would be a metaphor, okay? Because he hasn't actually swallowed the fear, but it said it like he actually has. So that's a metaphor. So how does Thomas feel about the forest in paragraph 3? So let's go back to paragraph 3. Go back and read it. So Thomas had grown up in the shadows of the gnarled oaks with their precious autumn acorns and the horse chestnut trees with their prickly treasure. He knew by heart the sounds of their leaves, the calls of the birds that they sheltered, and the vibrations that sang the lives of thousands of animals, furry, winged, and feathered alike. He knew them all. So that sounds to me very much like he's remembering something with fondness, and he's enjoying remembering what he remembers about the forest. So I'd say he probably cares deeply about the forest. So that's the sort of thing you need to be doing. You need to be reading the question, going back and finding the relevant part in the text, and answering the question. Next, we've got language questions. Moving swiftly on. So language questions on the comprehension paper test your ability to identify devices and the effects of those devices. So we've got the same extract here. So what device is used in the quotation? A shriek pierced the air with all the force of an arrow. So what that is it's a metaphor because basically it's saying that the shriek pierced the air with the force of an arrow. It didn't actually pierce the air with the force of an arrow, but it's saying this, it was like something. Basically, the shriek of the air was like an arrow going through the air, but it's saying it was actually it. So that's the metaphor. So what's the effect of the metaphor? Is it to show that the shriek sounded like an arrow? Is it to show that how violently loud the shriek was? Is it to show that the shriek looked like an arrow? Or is it to show that someone is in the sky? Well, that is just basically to show how violently loud the shriek was. So what language device uses this quotation? So Thomas swallowed the fear that had risen in his chest. Well, we looked at this a second ago. That was a metaphor. There's Scooby swallowing some fear. So again, we talked about that a second ago, so I'm not going to go into it too much. So which phrase from paragraph 3 is a metaphor? So is it precious autumn acorns, prickly trees, gnarled oaks, or in the shadows? That would be prickly treasure, because the treasure the prickly treasure he's referring to is from the horse chestnuts, but they're not actually treasure. So again, it's saying the horse chestnuts are treasure by saying that exactly they are prickly treasure, but they're not actually prickly treasure. So moving on to the last section we're going to look at. So we're going to look at some multiple choice comprehension. So in multiple choice comprehension, you will be asked to read something and then answer questions about what you have read. You will be given 4 options per question, and you need to select the correct answer. So, for example, we've got an extract here, which I'll read to you. So, Kieran walked briskly towards the warm orange glow of the distant windows. Though darkness always fell early in these parts, it had still taken him by surprise, and he shivered as he pulled his jacket a little more tightly across his chest. So some question you might be asked is, how is Kieran feeling in this extract? Is he excited, despondent, cold, or warm? So when you're answering the question, we know that Kieran is not feeling warm because he shivered and then pulled his jacket in the chest. Both these actions suggest Kieran is cold. So the answer is cold. So basically you look for evidence in the text or the extract to help you answer the question. Now, when you reread the extract, that often gives you a clue of how to answer the question. So if you read the extract, answer the questions, then go back to the extract, that will help you answer that. So what colour is the glow in the distant windows? So again, we'll go back to the extract. So Kieran walked briskly towards the warm orange glow of the distant windows. Well, that is orange. That's just a nice simple retrieval question. So which 2 adjectives are used to describe the glow? Well, I just actually mentioned that. That was warm and orange, wasn't it? And what is Kieran wearing? So let's go and read the passage again. So, though darkness always fell early in these parts, it surprised him and he shivered as he pulled his jacket a little more tightly across his chest. So the only item of clothing mentioned is the fact he's wearing a jacket. And that is all we're going to look at for your 11 plus comprehension preparation. If you want to know more or want to see more question practice, things like that, then go and check out our free 11 plus comprehension courses to help you with your preparation. We also cover non-verbal reasoning, verbal reasoning, and maths courses, all for free. So go and have a go at those. But you can also watch our other videos covering those topics as well. I look forward to seeing you again soon.